app is one business, but you have your own business. So if you want to give a little background on that, what that is, and what you do with the consulting company, correct?
Yeah. The consulting company is Woods and Tech. It's essentially a software consulting company. It's a premier development shop that essentially builds mobile apps and websites for business owners, whether they be startups or have 3 to 5 employees. We normally take customers that have typically less than 40 employees. But essentially, we help business owners separate from their competition and add value to their customers through technology.
Cool. And how long has that been? How long have you been working on that?
I've been working on that for somewhere around 4, maybe 4.5 years. About a year or two before I started So Hard, I was building these apps for different corporate clients or different corporate companies that I was an employee for, and just said, hey, there's no way that I'm going to actually be quote unquote successful by just being an employee here. I can maybe get a nice car, maybe get a nice house, but what is nice, it's going to be capped. Like there's a ceiling on how nice my car could get and how nice my house could get. And even if I was able to get a very nice house and a very nice car, I definitely wouldn't be able to take my mom out on a vacation and take my wife out on vacations. I wouldn't be able to take care of the people around my family and me at the same time. So I just knew that entrepreneurship had to happen. I knew it was for me and I knew it was going to happen. I just, at that point, had to figure out how it was going to happen. And so I went ahead and started by creating Woods and Tech, and essentially I'm still building apps and websites to this day.
Cool. I'll be interested to just hear a little bit more about the entrepreneurial experience. So was it like a one day, hey, I'm just leaving, or did you kind of, in that 4 years, was half of that time spent still working for someone else while developing your business, or was it like a transition to where you cut it off completely from that company and started your own?
That's a good question, because when I was younger, I thought that it had to be all or nothing. I thought that you had to stop one to do the other. But that's not exactly the way it worked for me. So when I started Woods and Tech, I was still a 9-to-5 employee.
Okay.
I was still, punching the clock. I was still going in every day, working in corporate. And I did that for 3.5 years. And I would I would leave my 9-to-5 job and I would go to networking events and try and do everything I could to catch a client. And that had some amount of that got some progress, but I started to feel the pressure of, I need to just do this thing. I need to just get out there and get it done. But I held back. And instead of just jumping out there, I decided to continue building, continue working. I started So Hard so that I could have a good portfolio and be able to help people, help people through my sweat and my passion. And so just over the course of time, I built the businesses up. And, can I say that I replaced my 9-to-5 income? Absolutely not. I'm still scrapping. I feel like the money I'm making today is very similar to the money I was making when I started out as an employee. I'm building something that's bigger, that's greater, and it doesn't have a cap. And so what I would stress to people who are aspiring entrepreneurs is you have to be okay with the process. You have to understand that it is a process, and you will stumble. You will have to take a step back so that you can leap forward, right? Nobody can jump without first bending their knees. So you got to go down so that you can come up, right? And so that's what I would stress there. So around 4 years ago, I started Woods and Tech. And it was only about a year ago when I actually quit my 9-to-5 job. And so it was about three and a half years of just leaving my 9 to 5 and going to, a co-working space where I just spent all of my nights and, just working until whatever time. Some nights I came home at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember one night I was working hard on So Hard, and I was in this entrepreneurial program. So I got off work, rushed to this entrepreneurial program. I got there at around 5:30. We went until 7:30, maybe even 8, and then I just went over to the co-working space that was like literally across the hall, and I worked there from about 8 until like 2 or 2:30 in the morning. At which point I said, okay, well, I can't just go to work stank, right? I can't just walk in like that. So I took 30 minutes, drove home, basically didn't have any time to do anything, but I went ahead and took a light nap and, woke up 2 hours later so that I could get to my 9 to 5 on time.
Wow.
And so there were nights that was like that, and there were nights where I just was like, okay, I can't. I felt like, and you have to be, like I said, you have to be okay with going through the process. There were nights where I just felt like I couldn't do it. Nights where I felt like I just need some rest. I need to just chill today. And so that was really what the journey was like. It felt like it was chaos, and it felt like it was all over the place. But one day I did take that leap. It took me 7 years to figure out how to take the leap, but I eventually did. And so I would stress to everyone, just take the process as it comes, hold yourself to not jumping out immediately, and be calculated. You can be courageous and take the leap, just don't do it in your first week of being an entrepreneur.
It seems like a part of how you were able to get access to it was through your education in middle school, or just education and performing well, because you said you had to take a test in order to do it. So was that, I guess, how you gained access to it?
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of a two-part question, how, I guess, to kind of get more of our younger males or black males or females, really, I know that's a deficit in that area too.
Yeah, come on, girl.
What are some, things that you think, looking into it, what are some things where we may be able to get younger people into it, or how can we change the dynamics of where it is? Do you think that's like resources being available? Because I know you said you didn't have a computer for a while versus somebody that had that growing up most of their life. Do you think that's part of the issue, or like in our community, it's like you said, it's not the cool thing to do. We hoop all day, or you might be on the block selling drugs, unfortunately, or you play like sports or rap, those things that kind of, I don't necessarily say come natural to us, but that we see all the time. So that's kind of a loaded question, but picking parts from that, how would you, I guess, answer that? And so I guess starting with getting more people involved and the youth involved.
Yeah, I would say, to get the youth involved, I think that it starts with the parents. It starts with the parents, and essentially using through the parents, you can expose the children at an earlier age. I wasn't exposed to technology until I was in the 8th grade, and I was lucky. I tested it to I did better on the test than some of the rest of the class, and so I was able to go into this sort of different educational path that allowed me some free time with a computer, which is where my infatuation became, really sort of locked in. I think that what a parent could do to help their child, have more opportunity is expose them earlier. I had a father who was into sports. He wanted me to carry a football as soon as I could, put down the diaper. But I wasn't into it, right? I got into football, around the 8th grade. And that's just because that is what we know is, this is what you do. Like you a boy, oh, you playing football, right? You playing football, you playing basketball, you playing some sports. But if my parents had said, oh, well, this guy actually likes mathematics, he likes science. Maybe we could put him into a science program. Maybe we could expose him to some robotics or some coding, or these things that felt impossible for us to get into. So it's hard for me to really fault my parents, because at the time it felt impossible for black people to get into these things. But nothing's impossible if you put a kid to it and get the kid excited. The kid will figure things out.
Right.
Like if you give a kid a computer and tell him that he can make a video game, or you will buy him X if he create something on there, then that kid will go and create things all day, right? Kids are naturally excited. They're naturally ready in there, and they're problem solvers as well. You just need to kind of give them the resources to put it together. You give them a stick and a match, they'll make flame, right? And so that's what I would say to do to get more black kids into the tech space, is just expose them earlier. And there will be some that say this is for me, and there will be some that say it's not. And I think that just that exposure is half the battle. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Do you think that, so in school, did you perform well academically?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
So for a student that may have the skill, for instance, that they can probably they probably play video games all day. Do you think there's opportunities for them in the same space that you had? Like, if they didn't perform academically, well, I'll ask you this. In what you do you think you necessarily need a degree to accomplish it? Or do you think there's people that could probably, if they got the work experience, they would be well in it? Do you think there's people out there like that are kind of getting overlooked?
I would say anybody can do this.
Yeah.
Like, it looks complicated from the outside. When you have a different job other than developing software, it seems like this is so complicated that it's impossible unless you were super smart in school and you had the degrees for it. But the truth is, it's really easy. To say really easy might be a stretch, but it's a lot easier than you would think. It's literally just like anything. It's just like riding a bicycle or swimming. You are going to be terrible at it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're gonna look at what you did and get some feedback on how to do it better. You might read on how to do it better. You might get a coach to help you do it better. But essentially, the starting point for everybody is being terrible. And just over the course of time, you get better at it. People might think that because I did well in school, it lent itself naturally to me. But the truth is, when I was in school, they didn't teach us much about developing software. Like I said, they teach you things around the subject, but you don't really learn how to do the thing until you're in it. And so I would say that, about 70% of the time I spent in college, I didn't learn anything that was valuable to what I'm doing today. And when you look at the landscape of software today, you don't even need to learn half of what I learned, right? To create a website, you used to have to be a coder, right? To build websites, you used to have to know how to code and all these things. Now there's Wix, and there's WordPress, and there's Squarespace, and you can go onto these websites and build your own self a website without a developer being involved at all, right? And I'm getting ready to actually put out some content around how you can do the same thing with mobile apps, right? Everything is a lot simpler these days. You give a kid a computer and he can make an app or a website or a game, and it's nowhere near as complicated as it used to be. But even if we're talking about the complex jobs, or what people think is complex, which is typical software development, you don't need a degree for it. When I came out of school, I graduated in 2016. Literally that same year, I said, how am I going to fill up my time now? Like, I used to work all the time, and I used to go to school all the time. And so when school left, I felt like there was a vacuum. And I'm like, okay, well, this is how people die.
Right.
People don't have much to do, and this is a probably great thing to say is people who don't have anything to do end up filling up their time with things that are self-destructive. If you don't have anything to do with your time, you will destroy yourself. You will eat the cake that you don't need to eat. You will ride around with the friends you don't need to have. You'll pick up the joint that you don't need to smoke. You will destroy yourself if you do not have a purpose. And a great way of, a great example of that is, the suicide rates of veterans when they come back when they get out of the military is extremely high. Alcoholism, drugs, all of that, all of the self-destructive behavior of humans skyrockets for veterans once they get released from service. And the reason is they don't have a mission.
Right.
A veteran comes out, they're getting a paycheck because they had been in there, and they used to have this mission. They used to get up every day, used to have something that they needed to do, and then it falls out from under them, and they're like, "What do I do?" They're like, "Okay, well, I might as well do whatever." And that is what I feel like kills most people is the lack of a mission. So yeah, I just got off on a little tangent there, but what was the question I was even answering? I just felt like that part was very important because people need to hear it.
No, you definitely touched on it. It was more, I think we were talking in regards to you needing like a degree, or for people that may not have the opportunity or they didn't perform well in school.
Yeah,
them having it, and I think it's good to hear that. Because a lot of times it's changing, the mentality's changing, but even going back to the parents, it's a generational thing. The parents of this generation, or even before when I was in school, you hear college, where now it's you got trades and stuff like that you can focus on, or IT schools or YouTube. I mean, it's ways to do it. So I think it's good for people to hear that, because every student is not, I don't want to say traditional, but every student is different. So how you learn, you can be successful in it, you can be great at doing it, you might be great working with your hands or developing stuff, but the structure of a institution, of a school may not fit you. So
exactly.
I think it's good for somebody in the field to even say that, so people that it might inspire them in to go back to school or to go back and pursue this. I think it's good because especially when you don't see yourself in it at the times, that right there by itself can defeat somebody. I can't do that because nobody looks like me. So I think being in it and also saying the different ways of exploring it are important for people to to know.
Yeah, for sure. Like I did go the traditional route of college, but the year that I graduated, I filled up my time. Once college was gone, I filled up my time by going and being a mentor for Launch Code, which is essentially like, it came out the year that I graduated, and essentially what it is a program that teaches people how to code without going through school. And so when I was coming out of school with a $50,000 debt, I went to this program and taught people how to do the exact same thing I was doing, so they could make eventually the same amount of money I was making, except they did it for free.
Right.
And so there are programs out there like that. There are programs out there like Launch Code who will essentially, help you learn the space without having to spend 4 years on a degree, 2 years on a degree, without having to, go through a ton of math. You don't have to be a huge, nerd or, bookworm. You don't have to be great at math. You don't have to be any of that. All of that typical thought is really not what it takes. What it takes is just being able to sit down and being able to hit a problem, think about it logically, and work your way around it. I have helped other people do it who don't have degrees, didn't do well in school, and I've even helped a guy who's, one of his eyes didn't work. He was coding literally one eye behind his back, and and he was cold with it. So everybody can do this.
Definitely enjoyed our conversation today, and you sitting down with me. It was a lot of helpful information, good information. I think some dope information.
Thank you.
So, if someone wanted to get in contact or get your app, download your app, contact you, or kind of keep up with what you're doing, social media, or what ways can they kind of get in contact with you or reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I keep a LinkedIn and Twitter for myself, Woods and Tech, and Sohart. Sohart also has an Instagram. So if you're on IG, you can go ahead and follow Sohart app. That's at Sohart, SOHEART APP. You can also check out what I'm doing, at my website. I'm at lamarwoods.com or lamarvwoods.com, whichever one you prefer. And I also am on YouTube, so you can find me on YouTube and hear me talking about entrepreneurship, the importance of entrepreneurship, and really just even sort of starting to branch into the technology space and how entrepreneurs can use technology to grow their businesses. And so, yeah, you can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or at my website. I've got lamarwoods.com, woodsandtech.com, and sohart.app.
Cool. Well, once again, it's been Lamar Woods. Definitely appreciate you sitting down with me.